Okay. Hello, everybody. It's Chantel. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Sorry for the slight delay for coming on and then popping off. There's a little delay on my side, so I couldn't tell if there were people here or the comments. But when I signed off, I saw that you were here and you were commenting. So I think there's just a little delay. So this is take two. We're going to start now. It is now just after 11, and I am really, really, really happy to be here on Sally Kay's wonderful Reflexology book club. I have so many memories throughout the years, um, recent years with this book club. So it feels really, really special to be here today and to talk about my book. So I thought, and by the way, when you come on my side, like I said, I'm used to doing Zoom and seeing you and interacting with you. So this is a little bit different for me because I could only see numbers and comments. So when you do come on, I would love to know where you are, even though there will be a delay. I would love to know where you are in the world that you're signing in from today or tonight. It's just after 11 my time in Petaluma. I'm pretty sure it's around 7 o'clock in the UK. So I'd love to know where you are. And we're going to dive in. What I'd like to do is I'm going to start out by just talking a little bit about the history of this book, kind of how it came to be and why it came to be, why I decided to put it to words, and why I felt publishing was the best means to get this content out there. Why was the written word important for this particular text? So, um, well, I'd like to start by saying, I'm a reflexology educator first. I have written now, I think, 5 books. Um, and while that is one of the ways that I communicate information, so much of what is important to me is relaying that information in real time with people. So this book actually started, and it's very similar to my other manual. I have 2 manuals. One is this one, Reflexology and Common Conditions, and another one, which is a Reiki book called Intuitive Reiki, an Integrative Approach. So these two are large, 8.5 by 11 books. Uh, both of them started because I was teaching people and I wanted them to have something to open, to turn to reflect on, to review, so that it wasn't just our time together. So the Intuitive Reiki book, which I also have here, this one I published a few years ago. It's this one, Intuitive Reiki. This started because I have an intuitive Reiki program, and I wanted those students to have chapters to refer to. I wanted them to have homework and images, just stuff to be able to write on, reflect on, and yeah, something just to continue to return to. And so, Reflexology, this book, what we're talking about today, was very similar. I was teaching a reflexology program, and in that program, so much of what we were talking about were the basics. What is reflexology? How does it work? What are the benefits? What's the history? What is the central nervous system? What are the body systems? What are all the body systems? How do they work? How do they interact? And then another portion of that work that we were doing together is looking at certain disorders or syndromes, diseases. And in the work I do in my personal practice and at a clinic that I work at, is I have the good fortune to work with many people from all over the world who are in different stages of their healing process and of their recovery, wherever they are. Um, and so being able to catalog, which by the way, I just want you to know this. I wish I could refresh it. I know that there are comments just like there were a moment ago, but I can't access them. I can't see them. So I'm hoping, I know, maybe if I write something that will bring it to life. Dun, dun, dun. Aha! I see words. Okay, this is very good. Great. Hi, Sally. Okay. Yay. Okay, that makes me so happy. Hi, Sally. Hi, Tina. Hi again. Yes, hi again. Donnie, Nikki, Rachel. So, so good. Okay. Um, so what I found with working with their patients at a clinic, they're there for varying amounts of time, sometimes just a few days, sometimes a few months. They are going through rigorous health processes, different conditions, different diseases. So I have this really unique opportunity to work with them and it's very vital as a practitioner that I know as much as I can about the disease, disorder, syndrome, condition. And then, of course, secondarily, when I'm with that person, I have an understanding of what the disease, for instance, might be. I have an idea of what is common symptomatology. I have an idea if there are different types within that particular illness. And then I have this incredible opportunity as a practitioner and a human being to ask them, how does this reflect in your body? What's going on in your body as you were given this diagnosis as of today, right? So, so it became really, really important that I include that as well. So this book is less of a manual, but more like a guide, a place to go to for whether it's someone who's a non-reflexologist, it might just be someone who's interested in understanding, like, what is this body? What are my body systems? How do they work? How do they interact? If I have a certain condition or dis-ease, how might that reflect in my body? Are there reflex areas that I can learn and I can press that may help to alleviate some of my symptoms? So, in this way, the book can be for the non reflexologist for sure. It may mean that there are words that are unfamiliar. But for me, one of the most important things is that something is understandable. So, in this book, it is written so that the layperson could understand it, but then also a lot of the people that are gravitating towards this work are people that are either students of reflexology or are reflexology practitioners or are teachers. So what I've found and what I've heard is that this book is good in that it is very, very clear in describing basic stuff. So that means, and I've been told that when someone is, say, preparing for a test like the ARCB, that it was helpful to be able to turn to the pages, for instance, about the body systems or understanding. I'll show you some of the pages too. Understanding where certain bones are, for instance. So let me actually start to show you some of these pages. Okay, so, and I'm just going to look off to the side, really hello, waving, hi. So good. Okay, so good to see all your names and envision all your faces. Okay, so I'm going to read from the book. This is the book, Reflexology and Common Conditions, Methodology, Technique, Physiology, and Symptomatology. And I'm going to show you some pages as well. This is the back cover, just so you know. On the back cover, this is my foot map without the lines and the places, but inside there is that map, and then I also have a brain map. So I wanted to start on page 66. And fun fact about this page, 66 to 68, I have an incredible editor. Her name is Allison Jacobs Maldonado. I've known her for a very long time. I've known her since I was about to turn 18. That's when I met her. We met at undergrad. And she is my editor and Spanish translator. And she did one of the most incredible things before publishing. So we've been working on this book for a very long time. It's been through many different stages. Uh, but right before publishing, she said, I'm a non, she's edited all my stuff. So she kind of has grown to know what reflexology is. But she said, for what do I do as a non-reflexologist? How do I know where to go? So I have migraines. What do I do? And I was like, you go to the chapter that says, diseases, definitions, symptomatology, and reflexology guides. It's, in alphabetical order. You just go to, there's a section on headaches, you go to migraines, then you go to migraines, and it'll tell you the definition of the different types of migraines, the symptoms, and the reflexology areas or the reflex areas to press. She's like, but how do I know to do that? What do I do then? And I was like, you go back and you visit the area where the maps are, and then you press on those areas. And she said, but you never say that. And so what I realized in this incredible conversation with Allison is that so much, because I've been teaching and doing this for so long, I missed a really crucial step, which is so important to me. It's so vital that I'm clear. And so out of this conversation, out of her inquiry came this chapter, which is describing how to use this next section of where definitions, symptoms, types, and reflex areas are. I call them reflexology guides, and there's a couple reasons why, and if there's time, we'll get into that a little bit later too. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit from, this is chapter 5, reflexology and common conditions. On the following pages begins a list of select diseases, conditions, syndromes, and disorders, along with their definitions, symptoms, and reflexology guides. This section of the book categorizes these diseases and conditions in alphabetical order. If you or a client are experiencing symptoms related to a certain condition, for instance, you will go to that condition to learn the definition, the symptomatology, the possible types, and a list of reflex areas to address what may be affected. Once you understand the definition and possible symptoms and types, go to the reflexology guide, which is a list of reflex areas for parts of the body that may be affected by a certain condition. What is a reflexology guide? Consider a reflexology guide as you might a travel guide. The travel guide is a person who offers to take you place to place along a journey. The places they take you represent the reflex areas you visit. How do we know how long to stay? You stay as long as the reflex area asks. Reflex areas communicate back to the practitioner via subtle cues, like a change in the tissue that feels different from the other areas of the foot, for instance, that have no pain, or what might feel like small pebbles, sandy granules, or bumps below the surface. The reflexology map and the reflex areas therein are like paths along that journey. In reflexology, our techniques enable us to traverse these paths. Deeply listening to what is beneath our fingertips will allow us to know where to go. A reflexology guide is a set of reflex areas that, when contact is made, communicate with your whole body via your central nervous system. These parts of your body may or may not be affected by a disease or condition. The reflexology guide then is like a list of areas that may be out of balance, and because every person is unique in structure and symptomatology, not all will be applicable. How to address the reflex areas in your reflexology guide. And then this is what I was talking about that she encouraged me to write about. So what I do in this section now, and I won't read it, is a kind of step-by-step, like an example. If someone has anemia, this is the definition of anemia. We need to understand what that is, because so often, contrary to massage therapy, for instance, when someone comes in and we're asking them, how are you today? How's your physical body? How's your inner body? How's your heart? Really getting a sense of where that person is. if they have an understanding that reflexology is also addressing internal structures as well as external structures, they may be more inclined to give you a real lowdown on certain diseases or conditions they have. So in this way, it's really a good idea to know what different diseases and conditions there are and how that might represent in somebody's body. So then it goes through the symptoms, the reflexology guide, and where to press. And then finally, at the last of that, let's see. Yeah. While you may not know all the areas of the human body by working the entire foot or hand and feeling for changes in the tissue, noting the specific areas beneath your fingertips, and asking your client or loved one if there is any sensitivity, you are on your way to gaining tremendous ability in sensing and listening, the ultimate guide to truly knowing any subject matter. Remember, you are not diagnosing, you are not even treating a particular condition. You are a witness to a body whose tissue is communicating something back to you. Your job is to listen to the tissue. This section is an educational opportunity for you to learn more about what is affected when a certain disease or condition has progressed. If a baby cries, you pick it up. If something hurts, you address it. If you are hungry, you eat. In many ways, this section is a precursor to what comes next. Trusting your intuition as you traverse areas within a reflexology map. There will come a day when you will be asked to release your ideas of what you think you know and the knowledge you have gained from this book and other books, and lean more on your instinct. May this book help you on that journey. Yay, hello. Very good. What I'd like to do now is I just want to show you a couple pages, and then I want to see if there's any questions that you have about this book, okay? So one of the things I wanted to show you was, was starting on page 20. So this is a section on identification. How do we identify? In the most basic way, how do I identify where reflexology areas are? So I have this incredible artist who has done all the designs, including the cover. And so we start with the zones, right? So we have the zones. This is also in very large print. If you've heard me talk about this book before, it was really important that everything is in large print and there's space around everything. So there's space to write and to reflect and to really see what's going, even possibly without glasses. We have these areas. These are the guidelines. So for you reflexologists, you know the neck and shoulder guideline, the diaphragm guideline, the longitudinal tendon, the waist, the pelvic guideline. And then it gets into bony landmarks. So the bony landmarks, if you've been in school, if it's been a while, these sections are good to kind of go back. You may not be looking at these on a daily basis with clients, but I do get into the bony landmarks because so much, again, I'm always thinking about that student who is learning this for the first time and maybe about to take a test. So bony landmarks are really important. Bony landmarks are, things like the foramen, the notch, the process, the tubercle, these sort of things. So it defines it on one side and then gives you a representation in a diagram or in an illustration. And then you have 3 reflexology maps. There's a foot reflexology map, a hand reflexology map, and a brain reflexology map. If you know anything about me and the classes I teach, the brain is vitally important to me and my work. So it's all about that brain map in many, many ways. So we have the foot reflexology map. You could see it there with all the areas. I mean, not all the areas, but a lot of them. And then we have a smaller version of the hand map. And then finally, a brain map. So the brain map is interesting, and there are many different ways to access the brain. Oftentimes when we see a brain, or when studying the brain, we often see it along the sagittal plane, right? We see it from the side view, from the lateral view. This is from the posterior view, which for me is a much easier way to address brain structures. If we're looking at it along the sagittal plane this way, it's much more difficult in that that means that we're addressing a very small portion of the toe, right? So if I was, for instance, doing the sagittal plane, this is the bottom of the foot. If I was along the sagittal plane, I'd be doing all the reflex areas on the side here, on the medial aspect or on the lateral aspect. So for me, the brain structures have this much more healthy place, this bigger, plumper belly of a place where I can address those brain structures. It means that I'm going up now in this direction, whether it's from a frontal or posterior view. So that's the map that I've found to be the most helpful. So that's the one in the book. Um, but there are other ways in. And that's such a good conversation anyway. I feel like it would be really fun to get together with other educators and students because we're all learning something all the time when we're with our clients on the different ways that we can access the brain. Just like there are different ways we can access the body depending on where we are within a mapping system, right? I think of it like if you were to view a tree is much like a human body. Our reflection of a human body on a foot, on 2 feet, is much like tending to a whole tree via one of their branches. So it's really just a matter of what branch you're on. This is why, someone says, but the brain, it should be across all the toes. And someone else says, no, it must only be on the medial aspect, while another says only on the frontal or posterior side. It's such an incredible, it's a conversation, really. I think this would be a fun conversation to have, is that they're all true. We're just at different portions of the map, right? Just like a big house, there's a room, there's a person in a room, etc. We're just going down along that fractal. Anyway, but I digress, brainstorming. Sally K. Okay, so that is the brain map. Yeah, we got to have a conversation about the brain. It is, I think, would be so interesting. I was just watching a video this morning with Orlando Volpe, and he does it in a different way. And I thought, God, it would be so good to just all have like a forum and just talk about the how and why of the brain. Anyway, so I get into the brain in this book. Then chapter 3 is all about the application. How do I apply pressure and what's most effective? So for this book, because I wanted it to be very, very simple, understandable, I decided just to choose 4. 2 of them, reflexologists know generally. Thumb walking, finger walking. Another one that's quite intuitive is a press and hold. And the one that I added is one that I use most and is vital for addressing brain structures. And that's what I call a press and rock or a tilting gesture. And then I have all these names for how you tilt and what that might look like. So I call it different things, but in this book, I just say a press and rock or tilting. So then you have pictures. And those pictures are like this. And this is the same artist. He's so amazing, so simple. He's the same one who did the Intuitive Reiki book. So I thought, this is the press and rock. I thought we could actually do it together because it's such a good technique. And whenever I teach it, live or online, it can really help to shift one's practice. And there's just such benefit to really detailing a reflex area. And if it's the brain, all the more reason. So for me in my practice, I do reflexology for trauma and addiction. We're looking at very specific parts of the brain. So if I'm wanting to address, for instance, the bilateral amygdala or hippocampi, that's a certain part of the brain. And in order to really get in there, if I want to use my fingertips and not a tool, I'm going to have to really roll through that fascia, that area, in order to best address it in a really, really detailed way. So this is the best way I've found to do that. And it's very, very specific. So I wanted to do that together. Yes, the brain conversation would be, hi, Kit. Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, I love that Sally K said brainstorming. Let's do it. Okay, I'm going to show you one more thing. And then I thought we could do a little press and rock tilting together. But I'm going to show you another thing which is the body systems portion. So for the body systems portion, there are 12 body systems that I address. Everything from the skeletal system and what lies therein, the muscular system. Of course, these are 8.5 by 11 pages, so I am a little bit selective. I also have terms of movement, right? Again, it's so interesting because as a student, we need to know these things to pass a test, right? In order for me to pass the ARCB in this country, in the United States, I have to pass the ARCB, and it's different depending on where you are. I had to memorize this stuff. And so in one way, it's important that this is here. It's important that the voluntary, involuntary, and cardiac muscles are laid down here and we understand the differences, right? It's food, it's knowledge. But also, I find, and let me know if this is true for you too, I find that clients are like they're a step up nowadays. They know many of them know what's going on in their body. I would actually say every single person knows exactly what's going on in their body. They are the one person who deeply understands what is going on, right? There may have been some departure. There may have been a loss of empowerment or agency that they think they don't know, but they are the ones that know, right? I always think of myself as a practitioner or a friend. I'm just witness to this person who knows everything, right? And so that's one, that's definitely true. Number two, people now come in and they'll say, I got this frozen shoulder, my subscapularis muscle, and also my teres minor. They're naming all these parts. Or they'll say, they'll use terminology. So I think it's actually really, really important also that practitioners know this terminology, know symptomatology, know physiology on a deep, deep level. And that's why I love that we have continuing education. May we continue to deepen our understanding of ourselves, our bodies, other people's selves and bodies. So there's a lot of sections like this that is just deepening your understanding of like the neurological system. What is in the most basic way, what is the function of the neurological system, right? In the most basic way, in short, is to detect, regulate, and communicate. And then we can go. So that's a basic thing to know. And then if you read on, it goes into more detailed accounts of what that actually looks like. It gets into the 12 cranial nerves, gets into subsystems. And then again, for each one, there's a visual for each system, definition, function, in short, what it is, and if there's any subsystems. So you'll see it. I love, his name is Jean Bertasegno. And like I said, he's the only artist I work with anymore because he's so attuned to, look at that lymphatic system. He's really attuned to the body and how to articulate that through visual images, right? So what I'd love to do is I'd like to do this together, trying this technique that is in the book, which is called press and rock or tilting. I thought we would do that together. And then as we're doing it, think of any questions you have. And I would love to answer any questions you have about this book. Okay. So I'm going to show you, I could show you on a foot too, but I'd love for us to do it on our hands because most likely you don't have a foot in front of you right now. Unless you're very flexible, you could do that too. But I'm going to show you with my left thumb. I'm going to take my pointer finger and I'm going to press at the center of my left thumb, right at that center of the swirl where many of us would lay the pituitary gland reflex area. And I'm going to be on the point of my finger, which is my pointer finger, and I'm going to hold the back side. So I'm actually pressing very gently just to keep it in place on the nail. So a press and rock is different from walking, right? This is me walking. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm actually rocking up to the side and I'm coming back down again. So instead of me going walk in the direction of my nail, instead I'm actually going side to side. So I'm going like this way, instead of this way. Okay. So I'm here and I'm going to rock up And it's continual pressure and back down again. So the reason why I like this press and rocking gesture or this tilting gesture is I never come away from the tissue. So if I'm starting at the level of a pituitary gland, as I rock up, I am getting hypothalamus, thalamus, into gray matter. Like I'm going up into all those beautiful structures. And because my finger is as big as it is, it's getting to move through those structures and it's not missing anything. When we thumb or finger walk, there may be a departure away from the tissue. So in this way, we're just able to kind of be with it more. So when you do this, I always think of it like a clock. I'm going to 12 o'clock or 6 o'clock. 12 o'clock. Can you see that? Yeah. 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And what I can do is imagine like a clock face here. In this way, then I can go to 1 o'clock, I could go to 7, I go to 2, 8, 3, and 9. 3 and 9. So you notice how it's a side gesture. 3 and 9 is interesting on that clock face because now I'm going into the temporal lobes. Because this thumb, and remember, the way mapping systems work is I can be anywhere along that map, right? I can work with this map, or I could work with this map, or I could work with that map, or I could work with that map into infinity. That gets into other kind of conversations, philosophical and cosmological, but in the most basic way, this finger is going to represent this brain. If I'm working from the system that there are 10 in that way. So this is one body, or if there were 2 feet together, that would be one body, right? So that's the map we learn is one body. But many of us learn too that a lot of those brain structures are found to be at the center. So that's the one that I've found to be the most helpful and absolutely good and true and awesome that there is one that also courses on the medial aspect. And that's just where it gets fun. The more we know, the more we can give. So if you're trying this out, the reason why the temporal lobes are so important and why we want to be able to get into that and not depart from the tissue is now we're starting to see as we go into those subcortical structures, right? Deep in the brain. Sub meaning below, like submarine, subcortical. Cortical, cortical, is like cortices, right? Where all that beautiful neuronal processing is taking place. Those are the cortices, where the cortical structures are. You go deep in the brain, you got subcortical structures. This is where the goods are, right? You go deep and a little bit lower, we have the limbic system. So we have parts of the brain that we want to address and we don't want to depart from, right? They want attention, just like if you were working on someone's shoulder. Someone says, oh my God, I have this left shoulder pain. Okay, left shoulder pain. Here is the shoulder. If I go in, I have the rotator cuff. This is the scapula, right? We learned that. So if we can work the shoulder, we absolutely can work different parts of the brain. I just taught a class in Arlington in Massachusetts, and there are 3 levels to this class I teach: reflexology for trauma and addiction. And in level 2, we go into deeper structures. And, different parts of the brain are responsible for different neuronal activity. And one of my favorite areas of the brain is the posterior cingulate cortex. This is the part of the brain for self-reflection, which is one of my favorite things in the universe. Now, every part of the brain has something interesting to say, something interesting it does, and interesting conversations it has with various other parts of the brain via its neuronal activity. So it's really fun and interesting if we can get in there, even as we're just learning about these parts, right? Like many reflexologists just learn pituitary, pineal, and maybe hypothalamus. But there are so many other parts of the brain that are very important, especially if we're looking at certain conditions. Anyway, so as you wish, try this technique on your own self, try it on all your fingers, and try it with clients as well. This kind of rocking up and down gesture. Another thing you can try is what I call sunbursting. And again, this is from that one technique in the book where you actually go 1, 2, 3, where you're actually coming, say I'm going up into 12 o'clock, I would press and rock once, press and rock twice, press and rock 3 times. So I'm going up, 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 but I'm departing from the tissue, but I'm going right back down where I was before. So try that out. Let me know how it goes. And I would love to know if there are any questions or if there's any part of the book that you'd like to see more of, or if you'd like me to read any more. And I will look. And hello, everyone from, oh, yay, Nikki. Yeah, Donnie from Manchester. I know these names. I know these people. Wonderful. Hello. Ah, yeah, that's the book. Yeah, so the book is on Amazon, and there are different. I don't think if I go away this, I don't think this will get rid of my image. But yeah, this one is the one for the UK. And then there's a slightly different one that instead of .uk, I think it says it says .com instead of UK for the one in the States. So any questions? I know it's a little delayed, so I'm going to kind of wait to see. Is there anything you'd like to know about this book, about even what we just did, that technique? I know it's a departure from the book, but it's really not, because it's a continuation of a technique. If you're doing that press and rock, for you to intuitively continue to utilize that, and you can utilize it for sure on all the toes and the fingers. But you know, some of you may have learned that hook and back up, which I find very harsh on the joints. So when I'm working spleen and gallbladder, instead of doing a hook in and back up against my joint, I actually do a press in and I just rock up and down. And in this way, I'm able to get into all that tissue without hurting my fingers. So try that press and rock. And like I said in the book, you'll see there'll be another little diagram. You have this moving image to help, but also there's the image in the book as well. Yeah, it has the image, and then it also has a written version of what it is and how to do it. All right, any questions? And I'm going to wait 1 minute. And as I do, I'm just going to peek down to see if there's something else I want to share from here. I was really very blessed, I will say, and some of you probably know these people. I was very lucky in that Christine Issel, reflexologist, author, I mean, just a remarkable woman. If you know her work, you know, Reflexology, Art, Science, and History, Eunice Ingham, a biography. Her work is tremendous. She's also just a tremendous human being. She wrote a note at the very beginning of the book, and what follows after that is a foreword written by David Waite, who I think some of you also know, especially those of you across the pond. So he wrote a very lovely foreword that starts off the book. All right. Is there any questions? And if not, we can absolutely close. And, oh, okay, hold on. 1 sec. Using that technique made me feel drowsy. Very interesting. So oftentimes what happens, especially with self-care, because even in classes, when we do this technique, we always do it on ourselves first. Very interesting, because we're applying pressure to an area of the body via our mini map in our hands. So interesting that this part of the thumb reflects back to the brain. So if you are rocking up, you're going to be rocking into different structures, right? So rocking up, you get into hypothalamus. You actually are going to hit the pineal gland as well, responsible for producing, regulating, and releasing melatonin, a huge, important part and sister to our neurotransmitter vitamin D. That you're rolling over that. So if you think about it, and this is how I like to think about it, is what I am pressing on, we know this, is sending a message via my spinal cord back to my brain to send the message for that area of my body. And in this case, back to my brain, have greater blood flow, have greater connectivity, therefore relax. So that connectivity can manifest in different ways, right? Also, we're looking at and addressing different neurotransmitters and hormones, right? So neurotransmitters are going short distances, right? And we're actually at that level where they're communicating within the brain. If we're looking at hormones, which inevitably we would also be addressing, those are going longer distances and traveling through our bloodstream. So I love that. And I also really appreciate, it's like that's the food is a simple word that somebody says, drowsy. I pressed here, I felt drowsy. And I always think it's like the simpler and the most direct communication is always best. And what I do in these cases is I'll do some self-care and then I write down what comes in. I pressed here, I was drowsy. And then I continue on. I go to other areas. I pressed here, got a little nauseous. I pressed here, I felt like I wanted to stop. There is this way that I could communicate and really honor what's going on in my body, and then to bring it to the page, I find very powerful. Again, we do this in my live classes for trauma and addiction because we're looking at our words and how we feel certain things within our body. And it's so vital. And in many ways, it's for me, it's vital because it's bringing back that empowerment piece, that agency piece. I know what I feel, and so I just love. Thank you for writing that. That's really great. Okay, next. That technique felt really great on my thumb. Yeah, Nikki. Yeah, and try it. There's a technique I do. It's a kind of HPA axis, which also is really important. Many of you probably already know the HPA axis is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So there's that part of our brain, the hypothalamus, that communicates to our pituitary gland, that communicates to the adrenal glands to release adrenaline or epinephrine, cortisol, et cetera, norepinephrine, et cetera, into the bloodstream, right? That can get us up in the morning, but also it can be released too much, right? There could be an overproduction of cortisol, right? The message is being sent too much. In this way, the way that I do the HPA axis is I actually start at the pituitary, I rock up into the hypothalamus, and then I meet or greet the adrenal gland, and I hold for 5 seconds. I always hold at the level of my throat or my heart. And I always lower my gaze. When I'm doing self care, I want to shut all of this out and I want to just cocoon in, pay attention to the reflex area, pay attention to if I'm feeling anything as I do it. Hypothalamus, adrenal. I like the throat area to hold it at. There's a lot of power here, also a lot of power at the level of, it's another neuronal processing center at the level of the heart, right? Then I do my next finger, pituitary, hypothalamus, adrenal, hold. If I have somebody, a client who's having problems sleeping or has a very active brain, I will give them this to do a couple times throughout the day. And I usually recommend somebody to set an alarm. And there's two things that I recommend the most. They are the HPA axis self-care routine and palming of the eyes, which is not reflexology. But what it means is that if somebody sets an alarm on their phone for 3 times in a day at 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, whenever it is, they just stop whatever they're doing and they palm their eyes, rest their elbows on the desk, usually, and just sit. Those two things I recommend the most for clients because so many people are struggling with hyperactivity, difficulty sleeping, a sort of surgence of a lot of energy. There's a lot of new data being processed all the time. We're in a very rich time, and it can really affect our nervous system. Very interesting. Thank you. Oh yeah, thank you. Da, 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 da. This is a refresher. I was like, oh, of course. Oh, good, good, good. Oh, thank you. Felt like a reset. Ooh, I love that word. Yeah. Thank you. And I will also be ordering your Reiki book. Yeah, good. The Reiki book, not, planning, we won't talk about it here, but one of the things that's really I love these two books. I have other books that I've written, but these two, as I ascend in age, the thing that I'm more and more interested in is really educating myself and knowing the basics of something very well so that I may continue to deep dive into that thing. In the intuitive Reiki book, it does start with the basic principles, the Usui technique. It also has like homework. Maybe you don't want to buy the book now. There's homework. And then there's all these different, images. This beautiful line art from the artist, Jean Bressenio. It also gets into how to treat, how to do self-care, a little bit of the history. It goes into the very first chapter, gets into the Japanese and English translation of anyway. So yeah, that's very similar to the reflexology book in that it's educational in nature. Yeah, dun dun dun. Okay. The rocking I have intuitively done, but love the starburst. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll be using this more. Isn't that amazing? It's like I believe no one's created anything, by the way. We've all discovered it together. I just happened to put a word to it, right? It's like I didn't create something. We all intuitively do this stuff all the time. And yeah, and for me, visuals are so important. I like the sunburst. I love that you called it a starburst. I've also thought of it like a flower and going out to all the different petals. That imagery, also because I think we have this incredible connection to we are nature. So being able to see that imagery when I'm with someone's tissue just feels really good. So I love that. Really good. Yes, starburst, sunburst, all my the thing the what I call the techniques that I've developed. I have one called stirring soup, which is a I'm actually doing a class in a couple of weeks. It's a free one on my page, on my group page, Self Care with Chantel. And we're going to be going over subtle techniques, and one of them is stirring soup, where you hold the bottom of feet and you very gently stir soup as if in a very shallow bowl you had maybe miso, and you're actually just doing this very slow circular gesture that I call stirring the soup. But it's really just a subtle rotation. And again, maybe something that, like Carla, you were saying, that we intuitively do all the time as we are greeting somebody's nervous system through their feet. HPA access routine in your book. It is not. I purposely, thank you, Rachel. I purposely made it so that I don't get into that kind of stuff. Although I think it's incidentally in the book, in that in the conditions section, there are reflexology guides where it'll tell you that the HPA access will be important, but I don't actually say, at least that I remember, I don't actually say what the HPA access is, and I don't do that routine. Yeah. But you're right. It's interesting because it is very, very helpful. It's a very helpful routine. I personally stay away from protocols or routines. I like to call them guides because I think ultimately we learn a few techniques and methodology, and then we do the thing, and then we have to kind of let it go in order to find what our bodies intuitively are feeling. But the thing with the HPA access, and what I'm thinking about now, Rachel, as I read your question, is it is the closest to a protocol because that is a very specific route, a very specific pathway the internal body is taking in order to communicate something to, for instance, get us up in the morning, or what would happen when that release or the production and release of cortisol is taking place. Yeah, really good. Okay. Lorraine, yay. Hi, Lorraine. No questions, but just wanted to say thank you for your time. Thank you. Oh, I would absolutely agree and recommend everyone uses self-care on their hands, but allows time to note what each technique brings. I like to use draw your attention to the area you are working. Shut out the rest of the world. Yeah. I love that. Palming the eyes. Yeah, it's so easy. If I'm looking out right now, there's my door and I can see a bright pink tree. And so I love just looking at that. But there is something about lowering my gaze and just doing nothing. And even better if I do I allow my mind to let go and I do a simple technique. I have found, and again, this is more practice. What I have found in my practice, maybe that's the next book. What I have found in my practice is that if somebody says, I have a difficult time going to sleep, staying asleep, falling asleep, there's a lot of reasons why that might be, right? And we get to ask all sorts of good questions around why that might be for somebody. But I do know this: the mind, the active mind, has a very difficult time being active when I am applying pressure and saying something at the same time. That could be in my head, but the most powerful way I can extinguish thought forms is to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm basically going through all my fingers and just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Slower, slowly, right? So, thought forms have a difficult time entering and perpetuating if I have a physical gesture, a lowering of my gaze, which will limit my stimuli. So I'm limiting my external stimuli. I'm bringing it down to lower my gaze or close my eyes. I am applying pressure to an area and I'm counting out loud. You could also say words, but words have meanings, so it gets complicated. But yeah, food for thought. Can this hold and hold and rock? Yeah, press and rock be used on a pregnant lady to help balance the endocrine system? Great question. I don't know. Um, it's interesting. I love this question, and I'm a lover of words and words we choose, and I love that word balance, right? It is my belief, and what I know of homeostasis is, and actually I was just reading this in a book yesterday, which is very interesting. Maybe I'll read it to you now since it came up on homeostasis. This idea of moving balance. Homeostasis is moving balance, right? Homeostasis is not static, right? It's actually moving balance. So somebody being brought back into balance is an interesting concept to me because the body is actually always doing it for itself. And I'm going to read you something because I just read it yesterday. It's from this guy. Hey, look it, we're talking about another book. Feeling and Knowing by Antonio Damasio. Does anybody know who he is? It says I'm obsessed with consciousness, and so anyway, so he talks about homeostasis, and let's see, Yeah, here we go. He's talking about the origin of, from simple organisms to where we are today, which is so complex and so overdone, right? So this non-explicit intelligence. So homeostasis. Think of homeostasis as a collection of how-to rules relentlessly executed according to an unusual manual of directions without any words or illustrations. The directions ensured that the parameters of which life depended, for example, the presence of nutrients, certain levels of temperature or pH, or what you're saying, the endocrine system, were maintained to optimal ranges. Now, the body, what's so gorgeous about the body is it does it on its own. I believe we live in a time where there's external data, there's external stimuli that can easily throw me off my game. So we get to, as reflexologists, we get to help uh, have a conversation with the body via the reflex areas that can help nurture somebody back into that homeostasis, which their body is doing. So my feeling is that that intention married with the client's intention is automatically um, ushering her into a place of regaining balance. That's my guess. The press and rock specifically will mean that I get to be very detailed with that area, and there's more assurance that I'm gonna get more stuff, and not just like if a massage therapist was like, oh, here, 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 here. I'm actually going over every single little bit, so I'm not missing anything. That would be my short answer. Thank you so much. Thank you. I love your reflexology and Reiki books. Thank you, Donnie. It's so good to see you. Oh, not see you. I'll see your face soon. I'll see your face soon enough. Maybe even in the UK. I'm going to the UK next year, so maybe I'll see you there. Okay. Any last questions before we close? I always feel like an hour is a good amount of time. So is there anything else before we close and move into our evenings and days? And I'll wait just a moment because I know there's a pause before it comes to me. Okay, I'm gonna trust that that's good. I'll see you all later. If you have any questions, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Um, thank you. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, all of you, for being here. I'm around, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Um, this is my favorite thing here, this stuff. Um, yeah, and if you have any questions, something that didn't come to mind, send me a little message, and all that jazz. Okay. Yay. Thank you very much. Okay. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful afternoon. Hi, Nikki. Thank you for you. Thank you for you and your time. This was great. Oh, good, Rochelle. Good. Have a really beautiful night and day to all of you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.